Hey, how does it feel to win a free piece or to be up an exchange right in the opening stage of the game? Well, this is what we're going to be looking at in this video series, how to win your opponent's free pieces right away in the opening stage. And so today we are looking at various ways in which we can trap our opponent's rook in the opening stage. Now in the near future, I intend to release more videos like this where I'll be talking about how to win the free knight, how to win the free bishop, how to win the free queen right in the opening stage. And this is what you don't want to miss. So give this video a thumbs up because it's gonna be very interesting, and make sure to watch this video till the end. Thank you. So the first opening trap on our list is one that happens in the fork beer counter gambit. So the opening starts with pawn to e4 by white. By the way, we are looking at this from black's perspective. Here I recommend that you just respond with pawn to e5. Then you will see some of your tricky opponents responding with the move pawn to f4 immediately, which is known as the king's gambit. Now, unlike what black players play in this position, which is e takes f4, I want you to be playing pawn to d5 right away. There are about 4 moves that are mostly played by white players. So here we are talking of knight f3, knight c3, e takes d5, and f takes e5. Actually, f takes e5 is the 4th most played move according to the Lichess Database, which is the main area of our meet. So here after f takes e5, you can just simply play queen h4 check, attack on the king, and also eyeing the pawn on e4. And sadly enough, white will have to lose his right to castle. Otherwise, pawn to g3, which is the most played move, leads to queen takes on a4 check, attack on the king, and also eyeballing the free rook on h1. And there is nothing that white can do to stop us from taking the rook, even though white may try to trap our queen after knight f3. I mean, not that our queen cannot escape here, but we have this move bishop g4, which neutralizes everything. Please note that white's light squared bishop cannot attack our queen on g2 since it will be open check, and we are also threatening to capture the knight on f3 either with our queen or bishop. And so if white tries to hold on to his knight, king f2, we just play bishop c5 check, and whatever white does, he will have to lose his dear knight. Okay, and that was in the fork beer counter gambit. Now, I'm not saying that this is how all your games will be going, but the best you can do from these videos is to familiarize yourself with these little tricks so that you can start applying them in other different positions. Anyways, the next opening trap that we are looking at is the one that occurs in the McKenna's defense, similar to the fork beer counter gambit. Now here white starts with pawn to d4, after which I recommend you play knight c6, inviting white to push his pawn further. And I can assure you to say most of your opponents will be surely playing pawn to d5 in an effort to gain more space. I mean, cause why not? And this is when you need to play knight e5. By the way, this is similar to the Alehein's defense, just that we started with the queen's knight. Anyways, pawn to e4 is what they play, and here I recommend you play pawn to e6. Now in this position, pawn to f4 is the top played move according to the Lichess Database, and it is here where most black players play knight to g6, which is okay. But I want to introduce to you this crazy idea of sacrificing your knight and play e takes d5. Now let me tell you the truth, I can play this even in classical games without having any difficulties. Cause this knight that you're seeing here is not a free knight, just to tell you the truth. Even Stockfish confirms that the best move for white is just to play something else like knight c3 and not taking this free knight. Because if white takes the free knight, here I recommend that you just play the simple queen h4 again, and that's check. And just like in the fork beer counter gambit, if pawn to g3 blocking the check, here we have queen takes on e4 check, and also eyeballing the free rook on h1. For example, after queen e2 blocking the check, here you just take the rook, and now material is equal, except that you are up an exchange. Knight f3 in an effort to trap the queen doesn't work due to pawn to b6. Because the idea is that if white tries to play something like king d2, intending to trap the queen after bishop g2, we can simply play bishop s6 attacking white's queen and the bishop on f1. And so white will have no option apart from taking the bishop, and that's how we take white's knight. And from here we are going to win the game. Oh, but wait a second. Yes, white doesn't have to play pawn to g3 to block the check. He can just make any other king move. But let me just give you a leakage. Black will end up having 3 pawns for a piece with massive counterplay and a very dangerous attack. In fact, if there's anyone playing for a draw in this position, it is white. I don't want to spoil things for you because I have a full separate video on this opening, so feel free to check it out in the description down below. Now, hey, don't just watch this video. Please consider subscribing to my channel because that's what encourages me to keep on making more wonderful videos like this one just for you guys. And by hitting the like button, you are simply saying thank you, Casper. Again, feel free to leave your comments in the comment section down below. I read all of them and I do respond to some of the important ones. I love questions. Please keep them coming. And before I forget, the link for my new website is in the description down below, where you can purchase all my lovely courses at very affordable prices. Link is in the description down below. Alright, let's get back into the video. The next opening trap that I want to show you is one that arises from the burn variation. After pawn to d4, then black plays the most played move, knight f6. Here you just continue with knight to c3, and after g6, again the most played move, black signifying that he wants to play the king's Indian defense with bishop g7 and pawn to d6. Here we just go ahead and play pawn to e4, intending to go e5 next, harassing the knight, and after pawn to d6, stopping e5. Here I recommend that you play bishop f4. I know that I have presented a similar trap in one of my previous videos, but this is a little bit different as we are not looking at the bishop g5 variation. So here anyways, black will play bishop g7, intending to cast a shot. Anyways, you still go pawn to e5, attacking the knight, and after d takes e5, you take back with a pawn, and the top played move in this position is rook takes on d1 check, and here you take with your rook. And like it or not, in this position, black will play knight h5, simply attacking your bishop. And right here is where I want you to play knight d5, indirectly defending your bishop and also intending to capture on c7, giving black a check, whilst eyeing the free rook on a8. Now, to my surprise, in this position, knight takes is the top played move according to the Lichess database. That's what everyone plays. I was very shocked when I found this, because here we simply have knight takes on c7, forking the king and the rook on a8. And please note that the d file is already covered by our rook on d1. And so the only move is for black to play king f8, after which we don't even take the free rook on a8 because it is checkmate. This is why we encourage you guys to be very patient when you are playing chess. Just take your time and try to find the best moves. Anyways, for those of you who watched my previous video on the burn variation, you already know that this trap can also be achieved by starting with a king's pawn opening, pawn to e4, after black plays pawn to d6. Anyways, let's move on. Now the next opening trap is one that happens in the Benoni gambit. Now this is where white starts with pawn to d4, and here I recommend that you go pawn to c5 right away. Now there are two popular moves that are played in this position. The first one is pawn to d5 and the second one is just d takes c5. Now I already have a YouTube video that shows what to do after pawn to d5, and I also have a full course on the check Benoni defense. You can check it out in the description down below. That's where the link for my website is, where you can purchase my check Benoni course and other interesting courses that you may like. So the trap that I want to show you is one that occurs after d takes c5. Here I just recommend that you go pawn to e6. The whole idea is just to capture the pawn on c5, and here, believe it or not, the top played move according to the Lichess database and even in the Masters database is knight to f3, and then the second most played move is pawn to b4. In fact, in over the board games, you are going to see most of your opponents playing pawn to b4, and this is where our trap begins. So after pawn to b4, the second most played move, here you just play pawn to f5. Now please note that if white plays pawn to a3 in an effort to hold on to his pawn chain, we'll just take this pawn on b4 and the rook on a1 will be left hanging if white takes back the pawn on b4, which is why you're going to see your lower rated opponents playing pawn to c3, trying to hold on to this pawn. By the way, the best that white can do is just to play pawn to b5 or just play any other developing move, but pawn to c3 is what you're going to see your lower rated opponents playing, after which you play a takes b4, and here you are going to see them taking on b4 as well, holding on to this extra pawn, forgetting that the rook on a1 is undefended. And please note that this rook has got no any squares to go to, and so the best that white can do is to sacrifice his knight, and so we'll gladly take this free knight and continue being an exchange up. By the way, this trap can also be met with white pieces in the Queen's Gambit accepted, e.g. after pawn to d4 and black plays pawn to d5. Here you just continue with your Queen's Gambit setup, pawn to c4, and after d takes c4, e3 is the way to go, pawn to b5 holding on to this pawn. And here's where I recommend you play pawn to f4 immediately. Again, black cannot play pawn to a6 because a takes b5 hangs the rook on a8, and so c6 is what most amateur players play, after which I recommend you just take on b5. Here you can again play queen f3, attacking the rook on a8 this time, and again this rook doesn't have any squares to go to, which is why knight c6 is the best that black can do, giving up his free knight. Anyways, let's move on to the next trap. Okay, this is more of an advanced trap for advanced players. It begins after pawn to e4, c5, the most played move according to the Masters database. This is the Sicilian defense, knight f3, knight c6, d4, just normal stuffs, c takes d4, then black plays the most played move, knight f6. This is just the open Sicilian defense. There's nothing new about this opening. So again, here you just continue with knight c3, and according to the Lichess database, again the top played move in this position is simply pawn to e5, attacking the knight. Well, this is where you play knight db5. Idea is just to give black a check on d6 and occupy this square with the queen later on. And so pawn to d6 again is the top played move according to the Lichess database. Now after pawn to d6, the best move for white here is just to play bishop g5, pinning the knight, but you can still play around, especially in your blitz games and rapid matches, to play knight d5. Well, knight d5 is not a bad move because it poses a threat to jump on c7 and fork the king and the rook, which is why you will see black taking the knight on d5, and after e takes d5 attacking the knight. They prefer knight e7, intending to put this knight on g6 later on, but here is where we just continue building up our strong center with pawn to c4. See how solid our pawns on the center look. Now again, especially in over the board games, you are going to see your opponents playing pawn to a6. They are not very comfortable with this knight sitting here, which is a losing mistake again, because right now we are going to play queen f4, and trust me, things are very bad for black, even though it looks as if the game is equal. According to Stockfish here, a takes b5 is what black should play, simply giving up his rook again, and that's how we win an exchange. This is the normal continuation for black, but you're going to see some greedy players here playing something like bishop d7, and that's how you checkmate your opponent in just one move, and that's knight takes on d6, checkmate. Anyways, but instead of bishop d7, if queen d7 here, again we can simply take on d6, and that's check. King d8 is forced, so we play queen f5 check. Queen c7 is forced, and so we take the pawn on f7 with check, again forking the king and the rook on h8. So king d7 is forced, and here we can even go on and punish our opponent with queen f4 check. And please note that all these squares are covered. It seems like the only sensible move for black is b5, after which we take the pawn, intending to go pawn to b6, discovery check. plus winning the queen. So king e8 is forced, and then we play pawn to d6, now forking the queen and the knight. If queen d7, we don't even take the free rook here, we take the pawn on e5, attacking the queen. And if queen takes on d6, well, we just play b takes a6 open check, bishop d7, knight takes on d7, and the game is completely over. Anyways, so these are the traps to always keep in mind whenever you are playing some of these lines. I can guarantee you 100% that you are going to win many games with these traps. Therefore, thank you for watching my video, and remember to subscribe to my channel, hit the like button, leave your comments in the comment section down below, and don't forget to check out my courses. The link for my website is in the description down below, where you can purchase all my courses at very affordable prices. And so thank you so much, and bye bye.